So let's talk about how to do a listening comprehension. And what I'm saying here is not really that much different from what I have said about doing a reading comprehension. We're still following the basic structure of pre-task, in-task, and post-task. So what do we do in the pre-listening task? Well, we're going to contextualize the listening, which may involve using pictures or maps. We're going to activate the student's schemata. That is, we're going to activate what is their background knowledge. What do they already know about the content of this particular listening? We're going to personalize it by maybe asking for an opinion or asking students if they have had a similar experience to that which is going to be described in the listening comprehension. We might even use a short reading passage on a similar topic, which may help us to introduce key vocabulary, which again we're going to pre-teach. And the particular vocabulary itself together will allow students to predict in many ways what the listening is going to be about. You can take a sample extract from the listening and use it as a dictation, for example. That would orientate students to what the listening is about and give them a way into it. And we can also exploit titles and pictures to predict what the listening is about. So these are all the important ways that we prepare for a task in the pre-listening task stage. In the in-listening, we're going to do the same as we did with reading. We're going to move from a more content-based understanding, a global understanding, to a more intensive understanding, and then a focus not on content but a focus on form. So we're talking about global understanding, and a great way to be able to capture global understanding is through a graphic organizer. There are other ways, of course, we can use. We can give a series of pictures and ask students to put the pictures in the correct sequence according to the listening. It may be a listening which involves following directions on a map, or checking off items in a photograph, completing a grid, etc. All of these particular devices aim for global understanding of the particular content of the listening. It's important in a classroom situation to think about playing the listening 3 times and to follow this particular way of going about the listening comprehension. After the first listening, ask students to get together and share what they have understood. I usually say something like, okay, share your knowledge. This is important in many ways. It's part of a collaborative classroom, and it's also a way that stronger students can help weaker students and allow them to get into the listening in a better way than if they were listening just by themselves. Then we play the listening a second time, and notice we've not asked for any feedback. Okay, we've just shared what information the students have understood together in pairs. The teacher's not asked for any feedback yet. So then you play the listening a second time, and again let the students share their understanding again. This time, after they've shared the second time, the teacher is going to ask for some feedback. And here, the important thing is to gather in the information the students give you. You don't have to correct any misleading information this time, and you don't have to supply any missing information. You can use a transparency if you're still using overhead projectors. You can, of course, use a blackboard or Elmo or any other means to visually display what students have understood. Key, as I've said before, accept any responses. Don't correct wrong responses. Then we play the listening a third time. And here we're going to ask students to check the information that has been displayed on the blackboard, the Elmo, the transparency, or whatever it is. So now we have a specific listening task. We have particular information on the board, and we're going to check to see if that is the correct information. You can continue playing the listening as depending on the amount of time you have and the amount of interest the particular students have in the listening. But follow that basic minimum 3. First 2 are, after the first one, share your knowledge. After the second one, share your knowledge. And then after the second one, collect the information in some kind of visual form. And then the third listening, check the information. Is it correct? Is it not correct? Is there further information that needs to be added? Once we've done a global listening with a graphic organizer, we can then go on to more intensive listening. An intensive listening would be listening for picking out, say, numbers or letters and picking out particular facts and recognizing exactly what someone said. And that could be done through, say, gap filling. We're also going to work, as we did in reading comprehension, on a focus on vocabulary and a focus on grammar. And because it's listening, we need to have a focus on pronunciation. This could be one little part of the listening where we're going to really have a look at how pronunciation is working. We can use it to illustrate some of the rules of fast speech in English. And as I said in another lecture, if you transcribe a part of it, it will give you insights into what's happening in terms of pronunciation, which you can then pass on to your students. Then we're going to go to the post-listening, and of course we're going to exploit the listening by using the information from the listening for other tasks and going on to other skills. And we're going to recycle the Lexis, of course. And we're going to recycle the content of the listening too. We can actually go on and further exploit the listening. I'm a great believer in keeping materials and bringing them back into the classroom for more intensive work. It's very interesting with listening as well, because if you bring a listening back after a while, it also helps students appreciate how much their listening is improving. So maybe they struggled a little bit the first time you worked on this listening, you bring it back in a couple of weeks and they say, wow, yeah, I get it now. So you can make the listening available to students for self-access, put it on your course management system or whatever system through which students can listen to the material by themselves when they want. And as I said, use the listening again at a later date to focus on maybe other grammatical structures and other features of pronunciation and maybe other vocabulary. But the important thing is return to it. So what I've given you here is a way of doing listening comprehension. It's based on pre-task, in-task, post-task, and it's also based upon going from global understanding to more intensive understanding, and then to focus on form in terms of vocabulary, pronunciation, and grammar.